The flashing red and blue lights painted the front of my mansion like a crime scene in a bad TV drama. My heart pounded as two officers shoved me toward the hood of a patrol car, cold metal cuffs snapping tight around my wrists. "Stop resisting!" one barked, even though I wasn't resisting at all. I was too stunned to move. Across the driveway, a woman I'd never seen before stood on my porch like she owned the place. Perfectly pressed blouse, arms crossed, that smug half-smile that told me she thought she'd already won. "That's him!" she yelled over the sirens. "That's the man who broke into my home." My home, my $1 million estate that I'd built with a decade of sweat and sacrifice. I tried to speak, to explain, but the officer cut me off. "Save it for the station," he said. Neighbors gathered on the sidewalk whispering, pulling out their phones to record. And as I locked eyes with the stranger squatting in my doorway, she tilted her head almost amused. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a setup. And somehow, this woman had convinced the police that I was the criminal. My name is Daniel Carter, and for the past 6 months, I'd been 3 states away, overseeing the launch of a new branch of my company. It was the kind of project that demanded 16-hour days and endless travel, so much so that I barely had time to think about home. But that mansion wasn't just a house to me. It was my sanctuary, a place I'd poured my heart, savings, and every spare moment into. I left it in the care of a trusted property manager, confident it would be safe until I returned. Still, every now and then, I'd get an odd twinge, an uneasy feeling I couldn't explain. I brushed it off as fatigue. The day I wrapped up my work early, I decided to surprise my friends and family by coming back ahead of schedule. Driving through the quiet, tree-lined streets toward my gated driveway felt surreal. But as soon as I rolled to a stop at the iron gates, my stomach dropped. The security keypad had been replaced. My personalized nameplate on the mailbox was gone. And when the gates creaked open, I caught sight of something that froze me in place. An unfamiliar SUV parked proudly in my driveway. I stepped out of my car slowly, my eyes darting between the strange SUV and the unfamiliar flower pots lining. The porch, pots I had never bought, filled with plastic flowers I would never have chosen. The curtains in the upstairs windows were different too, a tacky floral print replacing my crisp white sheers. My mind raced. Had my property manager rented the place out without telling me? I took a few cautious steps toward the front door, my pulse quickening, when the door suddenly swung open. Out stepped a woman in her late 50s, perfectly groomed, hair sprayed into submission, oversized sunglasses perched high on her nose even though the sun was setting. She looked me up and down with the cold scrutiny of someone judging a stray dog on their lawn. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone dripping with disdain. I froze for a moment, then managed, "Yes, you can start by telling me why you're standing on my porch." Her lips curled into a smug smile. "Your porch? This property is part of the Willow Heights HOA, and as president, I have every right to be here. In fact, you are trespassing." I laughed in disbelief, thinking it was some bizarre misunderstanding, but her expression never wavered. "I've been living here for months," she continued almost proudly. "The previous owner abandoned it, so I took responsibility." My jaw tightened. "I am the owner," I said, pulling out my ID and pointing toward the engraved stone. Plaque near the front steps, my family name carved there since the day the house was built. She didn't even glance at it. "Fraudulent documents won't work here," she snapped. "I've already notified the HOA board and they'll back me up." I took a step closer, trying to peer inside, and caught a glimpse of my living room, transformed. My leather couch gone, replaced with gaudy floral furniture, family photos stripped from the walls, replaced by generic beach prints. Every trace of my life had been erased. The air inside smelled faintly of potpourri and some artificial vanilla scent that turned my stomach. That's when she pulled out her phone, smirking. "I think we'll let the police sort this out," she said. her voice cool and casual as though she were ordering takeout. And before I could say another word, she dialed 911 and told them there was a dangerous intruder in her home. I stood, there on my own front lawn, gripping the strap of my duffel bag, trying to keep my voice steady as I told Karen, though I didn't know her name yet, that she had exactly 5 seconds to explain herself before I walked in and called the police myself. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she strolled down the porch steps like she was the lady of the manor, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in that calm, performative voice people use when they want to sound like victims. "Yes. Hello, there's a man here. Yes, a large man. Very aggressive. He's trying to break into my home." I could hear the fake quiver in her tone, the little gasps she sprinkled in for drama. My stomach churned. This was spiraling, out of control. I tried to protest, raising my voice so the dispatcher might hear me in the background, but she stepped back toward the porch, shutting the door in my face. Minutes later, the wail of sirens grew louder, slicing through the quiet, suburban street. 2 squad cars rolled up, tires crunching against the pavement, lights flashing red and blue against the white siding of my house. The officers exited with hands near their holsters, eyes locked on me like I was an armed suspect. "Sir, drop the bag and step back," one ordered. "This is my home," I shouted, but before I could get another word out, I felt the cold grip of a hand on my arm, spinning me around, forcing my chest against the hood of a cruiser. The cuffs bit into my wrists. Neighbors had begun to gather, peeking from behind hedges, whispering to each other, and pulling out their phones to record what must have looked like a dramatic arrest. Across the lawn, Karen emerged again, her face painted with just the right amount of concern and self-righteous triumph. She handed the officers a manila folder, speaking in hushed tones I couldn't hear. One officer flipped through the papers, nodding occasionally, glancing at me with the kind of look you give a criminal who's just been caught red-handed. My mind reeled. What could she possibly have that looked legitimate? Property records? A lease? Fake deeds? I had lived in that house for nearly a decade, paid every bill, every tax, every insurance premium. Yet here I was, humiliated, restrained, and treated like a trespasser, while she leaned casually against the railing of my porch like she'd just won a legal battle. The officer holding my arm finally spoke. "Sir, she has documentation showing she's the legal occupant. Until we sort this out, you'll have to come with us." My pulse thundered in my ears. How in the world could a total stranger have paperwork, official-looking paperwork, claiming ownership of my home? The ride to the station felt like the longest 15 minutes of my life. The cuffs dug into my wrists, my mind a whirlpool of disbelief and rage. How could this happen? By the time we arrived, my lawyer, Tom Harrington, was already there. Bless the man for answering my frantic call the second I managed to borrow an officer's phone. Tom's a bulldog in a suit, the kind of attorney who can smell a lie before the first word leaves your mouth. He met me in the holding room, eyes sharp. "Don't say a word until I've seen what she's waving around," he instructed. Through the glass wall, I could see Karen in the next room sipping a styrofoam cup of coffee like she was attending a brunch, not defending a blatant home invasion. A stack of papers sat in front of her. Tom got the officer to bring over copies, and within 30 seconds of flipping through them, he snorted in disbelief. "This is laughable," he whispered, leaning toward me. "She's filed a fraudulent HOA claim, created an LLC for something called Willow Heights Homeowners Association, registered just 5 months ago, using a P.O. box as the address. Then she filed a lien against your property, claiming unpaid community fees for an HOA that doesn't even exist in your neighborhood. These aren't real deeds. They're photocopies of county forms with fake stamps." My blood boiled, but a pit formed in my stomach as well. "How does something that ridiculous get taken seriously?" I asked. Tom shook his head. "Because If it's presented with enough confidence and you catch the right rookie cop who's never seen this scam before, they'll act on it until it's disproven. I sat back, the weight of it all hitting me. Not just the risk of losing my home, but the insult to my family's history. My father had built that house brick by brick, back when money was tight and every nail had to be bought with careful budgeting. He'd passed away just 3 years ago, and keeping that house had been my way of holding on to a part of him. Now, to have some stranger waltz in and overwrite that history with a pile of lies. It felt personal. Tom requested to speak with the lead officer privately, bringing in property tax receipts, the original deed, and even archived photos of me and my father breaking ground on the land. I watched through the glass as the officer's skeptical posture slowly shifted, his brows knit, his arms uncrossed. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Tom slid over a certified letter from the county assessor, dated just a month ago, confirming my sole ownership of the property. The officer glanced toward me, and for the first time that night, I didn't see suspicion in his eyes, only unease, like he knew they'd been played. Karen, sensing the change, started talking faster, her voice rising. She jabbed a finger at the officer, insisting I was a con artist who'd faked my own paperwork. But the tide had turned. The more she spoke, the more desperate she sounded. The officer excused himself, returned a moment later with the police chief, and together they informed her she was being placed under arrest for filing false documents, fraud, and trespassing. The look on her face, pure disbelief like she couldn't comprehend her plan collapsing, was almost worth the hell she'd put me through. The air outside the station felt crisper than I remembered, almost as if justice itself had cleared the night. Karen was led out in handcuffs, her pristine blouse wrinkled, her once perfect hair flattened on one side from hours in the holding cell. The neighborhood gossip mill must have been running at full speed, because by the time the police van pulled up to my street, half the block was standing out front, phones in hand, watching their self-proclaimed HOA president get stuffed into the back seat. I stood on my porch arms crossed, meeting her glare with the calm satisfaction of a man who'd just won a war without lifting a weapon. The official eviction of her HOA was swift. The fraudulent LLC was dissolved within weeks, and the county placed her under investigation for similar scams in 3 other neighborhoods. But I didn't stop there. With Tom's help, I petitioned for the formation of a legitimate neighborhood HOA, one designed to protect homeowners instead of harass them. When the first election came around, I ran unopposed. Apparently, no one else wanted the job after what they'd just witnessed. Sitting at the head of that first official meeting, gavel in hand, I couldn't help but think about the irony. Karen had tried to use a fake title to steal my home. Now I held the real title she could never touch. And as I adjourned the meeting, I looked around at my neighbors, smiled, and said, "Welcome to an HOA that actually works for you." Somewhere I imagined Karen grinding her teeth in a county jail cell, and I'll admit, the thought made my coffee taste just a little sweeter the next morning. Looking back, I realized this whole ordeal wasn't just about a house. It was about standing your ground when someone tries to bulldoze you with fake authority. Karen counted on intimidation, on the chaos of the moment, and on the assumption that people wouldn't question a confident lie. And for a while, she almost had me. But truth doesn't just matter in courtrooms. It matters in every decision we make when we're being tested. That house is more than brick and stone. It's my family's legacy, my father's sweat in every wall, my own dreams built into its foundation. And no stranger with a smile and a stack of forged papers could erase that. If there's one thing I hope people take from this, it's that you don't let anyone, HOA, president, or otherwise, decide what's yours. Stand firm, gather your facts, and fight until the truth wins. Because sometimes justice isn't just about keeping what belongs to you. It's about making sure people like Karen can't pull the same stunt on anyone else. She thought she could steal my home. Instead, she handed me the gavel and now I run every meeting she once dreamed of controlling. If you enjoyed watching Karen's little empire crumble, don't let this be the end of the story. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next unbelievable HOA showdown, and smash the like button to show that homeowners deserve to fight back. Drop your own HOA stories in the comments. I read every single one, and your story might be featured in my next video. And remember, the only way to stop a Karen is to shine a light on her tricks, one story at a time.